Alrighty guys, so welcome to the second episode of You Can Build 2. Today we're going to be going through the code for Lo-LA59 Droid so that you can program it, but also for any other projects that you guys have, how you basically can get the code to work with S3, a DF player, and pretty much put in any project that you want to do, right? So here we are. This is my code here. For the Lo-LA59 Droid, right? So, so one of the things that I started off the code with, let me jump over here. I start off the code with is on boot, right? So, on boot, pretty much, basically it's on boot. So it's whatever you want to run when it's booting up, right? So the priority is basically at what level do you want these certain things to turn on, right? So if you go on the ESPHOME wiki page that they have, each priority does certain things, like if it's at Wi-Fi, if it's at just all hardware utilization, certain things like that. So for 800, I believe it's all hardware utilization. That's when I have it set up to turn on. I think negative 100 is basically like it's connected to the API, which is good if you're coding it and you're basically using it in your home, because then you can set things like LED to turn on when you know that the API is connected and it's connected to ESPHOME and Home Assistant, right? So on boot, basically anything you put in the then on boot is basically happens exactly when you start, right? So for mine, I put that it's going to delay 5 seconds, and then the light turns on, which is the Lo-La light, which is the LED that's at the front here for the Droid. That light's going to turn on exactly when it turns on, and then for the DF player that's in that makes a sound like all the Droid noises and whatever else you want it to do. I set the volume of that to 20. The reason why I set it to 20 is because when you're at Disney or if you're at a convention or something like that, it can get annoying if it's in your ear because it's right on your shoulder and it's going off like all the time. At 100, it's really loud. So 20, 15, or 10, you can play around with it, but those are kind of good levels as you know where you kind of want it to go, right? So we'll go down. All this kind of board stuff you can just copy and paste. It's basically allows for the Droid to just for, kind of getting it set up. So the API and the services for the DF player, you do need to copy all of these into, I'm just going to scroll all the way down, but you need to copy all of these so that you have all the functions of the DF player available to you through ESPHOME and Home Assistant, right? So just cut and paste all of that there. For the URT, so the URT is basically the TX and RX pins that connect from the DF player to the Seed Studio S3, right? So you can use, if you're doing the S3, you can use exactly the pins that I've used. I believe that some of the pins on the S3 are strapping pins, which you can't use them. So it will, like as soon as you start to compile it, it's going to throw an error at you. So you can use the 1 and 2. I don't remember all the strapping pins off the top of my head, so my apologies for that. But you can use 1 and 2. Those work perfectly, and they give sound. And for the DF player, the baud rate needs to be set to 9600, right? And then DF player on finish, you can have, this is basically it lets you know on the logs when it's finished playing whatever you've set it to play, right? Global IDs, I did not use this in this code. I had just copied it from my last one, but global IDs, they allow you to work with lambdas to maybe do something like a random integer or something like that, right? So for the light command, basically it allows you to set the LED diode, give it a name, basically for the name, the output name, and the ID, right? So the ID allows you to be able to call it in other like scripts and whatever else you want it to be, whatever else you're going to call it for, right? And it also shows up, whatever you name it here will show up in Home Assistant. Right, so the outputs, these are needed for the outputs for the servos and for the outputs for the LED. So for the LED, for the light, you need an output and the ID is bottom blue. That's what I named it anyways, but it's whatever you want it to be, and you put the pin there for that's it's attaching to on the S3. Also on the S3 for the servos, the SG90s, these are the pins 4 and 9, right? Servos, you do have to give them IDs, so I gave mine right wing and left wing. Right, so you can just when you get the code, just copy the code right here, and you can name them whatever you want, or however you want them to show up in Home Assistant. If if you want to control them that way or otherwise, but this is what I just named them. For the number template, so this is basically what gives the values for this the SG90s. Like moving the wing up and down, right? So typically, because I have mine reversed, right? So for the left wing, all the way down is negative 100, and for the right wing, all the way down is 100, right? And when you're creating scripts, how you adjust them, it's just between -1 and 1. So they convert negative 100 and 100 to -1 and 1. So when you're making your code and you're moving the servos and you want them to be at specific points, it's going to be like 0.23, 0.5, negative 0.23, negative 0.5. You kind of get the gist of how you're going to make the script. So we'll go through that a little later down. But for now, just copy this exactly as you see it there, and then that will allow for the scripts to work, right? So there's a button. So the button for the Droid, I did make a button here. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah, right there, right? And when you hit the button, it turns on the animation, right? So that's attached to pin 6 right here. And then for the modes, so the input, I have true. For the pull-up, I have true. And this was kind of tricky. So getting the button to work, because of how the signals are sent. When you push down on the button, it sends the on signal. When you let off the button, it sends the off signal. So that was for me, because I'm not the greatest coder, so it was a bit tricky to get, but I did figure it out. And this is how you make the button work on the Droid. It's like a tactile, like cheat button that I just put right underneath the push button on here. The filters, it's invert, right? On click, right? So on the click, just to push the button, I put the minimum length is 50 milliseconds and the max length is 350 milliseconds, which is the default for the on click, right? And it's basically just like a click, like just really quick click, and that executes the wings animation that I have below, right? Now the problem was double clicking also sends like the on click, which just messes up everything. Or it can actually, what you'll notice is that if your code is wrong, it'll short the whole S3 out. You have to unplug it and plug it, or use the on off button to start it over to get it to to work again. It took a while, but so the solution to this was, for the on click, you can set custom lengths to do different things. So I set the pushing the button down, but holding it for between 3 seconds to 5 seconds actually turns the animation off. So that allowed for the same button to have different functions, depending on how long you hold it, and it allows you to turn off the animation as well with the same button. People might have issues with this using these tactile buttons. It was a little difficult for me, but I figured it out eventually. So helping you guys out if you're building this, that's one of the ways that I was able to get this to work. Another solution another way you can run the wings animation, especially if you're going to like if you're just using it for a convention, or maybe if you're just using it for Disney or something like that, and not in your home or anything like that, but however you want to work it, you can set it to an interval. So there is a code that uses interval And the interval code allows you can just run the animation like every like 1 minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and it basically starts when you turn it on and stops when you turn it off, right? But the thing is, the button doesn't really, you can't really, you can use the button to turn it on and off, but killing the component itself, when you try to turn it back on, it doesn't start the interval back properly. So using the interval for the button didn't really work properly. So this is the best solution that I found. So here's the scripts now. So the script is wing shuttering. That's what I call it. But basically, when the wings they move really quickly to emulate like a bee or something like that. So I put the delay as like 0.04 seconds, right? And it basically moves between -55 and 52, and then 26 and 39. These are the points in the wing. So it's basically like fluttering between two different points really quickly. What you can do, I didn't do it for this, but I did it for my other one, is that you can use the global IDs that we used here, and then make a lambda that makes a random integer in between two integers, so that the wing shuttering movements are actually random. I didn't do that here. It is in my other code, and maybe I'll do another video on that, but I just did this one just for simplicity. It just basically bounces between these two the whole time, right? So the wings open is basically the wings at maximum height, right? So once you figure out where your server's maximum height is, you just put the code in there, and you put it right there. So this one's they're all lambdas actually, but this one's ID right, which is basically writing to that point of 0.27, and then left wing is basically writing to 0.13, right? And then wings closed, right wing, and this is basically the closed position, which I was saying is -1 and 1, right? So keep in mind that when you're using these, these SG90 servos, if you pull them too much, or if you go too far, you can break them. I broke one of them because I pulled, I set the point too far, and then it just broke on the inside. And then keep in mind that if you start hearing like a noise coming from the little motor in there, you're pulling too much, and then eventually it's gonna break. And even when you keep it at the open position, find an open position that doesn't make that that noise. You'll notice it when you start using it, but there's a noise that it makes when it's pulling too hard. You want to get it right before it's not pulling, so that everything is not put too much load, right? The wings animation here, so this one is it basically moves, closes and opens each wing up and down, up and down, up and down, and you can basically do whatever you want once you figure out how to putting them different heights and closing, and then when you want to make sounds or use the DF player, then you can execute that by doing dfplayer.play, right? So when you're loading the SD card into the DF player, there's a specific way you have to do it. Let me see if I can. Oh, this is not the right machine. But you have to name the folder MP3 in all caps, and then all the MP3 files that you put in there, they have to be 001 or 002, 003. If you go on the ESPHOME wiki page, it does explain to you how you have to name it in order for DF player to work, right? So basically script execute, and then what happened was I wanted this script to keep running continuously, and that was hard. We talked about the interval that didn't work, and the looping. When you hit the repeat function doesn't work, because depending on how the script works, like the mode, you can run it in parallel, so I had to run it. Let me see if I put that in here. Oh, I did not put it in. Oh yeah, so the mode is queued. So as soon as one is finished, it's already got the next one lined up, right? So if you run it in single, which I think it defaults to, I believe, it will try to run them if you hit the repeat right away, and then it doesn't work. So my idea was to put the script inside the script. So at the end of the script for Wings animation, it runs Wings animation again, and it's queued. So since it's queued, it just keeps looping over and over and over again until you hit the button, or you hold the button down for 5 seconds to stop it, or you can just hit the on and off switch, right? So the reason why I did it this way is because I also use the DF. I also use Lola inside the home for certain things to run certain scripts. So I wanted it to be dual function. Like if I did go to, Disney, I can still bring it, but then when I get inside my house, I can also use it too, right? So I'm just going to show you really quickly. Let me see if I can show you really quickly. We'll go to settings, integrations, ESPHOME. Oh, actually, no, that's not where we want to go. That's not. We want to go to developer tools. Do 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 do. Oh, I think it's this one, or is it the next one? I think it's this one, 34. All right, so let me see, is this thing on? Okay, now it's on. So let's wait for this light to come on, and then we'll try a file. Let's try 19. Waiting for this light to kick in here so I know it's connected. Might work. Let me see. Nope. There we go. All right, let me see. Okay, so you may not be able to hear that. So let me bring this closer to the mic. What side is the mic on? All right. So so when somebody approaches the front door, I have it to talk and say, like, oh dear, but C3PO's voice. You may not be able to hear it because it's so low, but let me see if I can play it again. Right. So I have a Real Link doorbell that I have all these animations for. Like somebody, it tells you when somebody's approaching the front door and has all these things on it. So when somebody approaches the front door, it'll also I set it up where it will send the basically, like an automation to play this on the Droid, and the Droid sits on my desk when we're not at Disney or something like that. So it has dual function, right? So that's pretty much, this is how you would test the DF player once it's once you've installed it to make sure it's working. And I've got a whole bunch of them set up. Like we'll do 5, and yeah, so like 5, I'll bring it closer to me so you can hear. Yeah, so like it just but this is just one of the functions that you can do with it. You can also program the Seed S3 to be a voice assistant with just a few more lines of code. You will need like a mic to pick up the audio when you're talking to it, but I do have Lola as a voice assistant. Let me see if I can show you guys that. And that could be another video for another day. But my voice assistant's here. Where is it? Yeah, so wake word Lola. So if I were to say like, "Hey Lola," then it would, it would do whatever. But this one doesn't have a mic. It doesn't have the, it doesn't have any of that. So it won't be doing that. But the other, yeah. So you guys can kind of get the gist of how these work. So that's the breakdown of the code. That's the I'm trying to see if I missed anything, but that's pretty much all the code and the breakdown of how things work and how you can kind of tweak things in order to make it work for you. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll look forward to the next episode.